Okay.
Okay, welcome everybody. Good to be with you today. This is the best. If you want to just see what a crowd we have for my ethics class today, best turnout we've had in a long time. So today we're going to begin to talk about the primary ethical systems. These are the different methods that philosophers and others use to determine what's right and wrong, what's good and evil. All these systems, we tend to break them down into two main families. We speak of cognitive systems and non-cognitive ethical systems. Do we know what the word cognitive means? I guess I'm giving it away. Benji. The mind. Thought. Cognition is thought. Right? So cognitive ethical systems are those systems that argue that there are moral facts that one can use one's reason and get to those facts. In other words, that there are truths to be found. There are things that are right and things that are wrong, and with the proper method we can determine those things. Non-cognitive approach to ethics says that's not the case at all. The good and evil are not questions of fact that can be reasoned to, that they touch us somewhere else. And the most dominant non-cognitive approach to ethics is emotivism. So when the fellow on the screen here is listening to a song and he says, "This song slaps," is that something that we can reason to determine if it's true or false that a song slaps? No. When I say Nirvana is the greatest band of all time, that's not the kind of thing that it's possible to be right or wrong about. I'm speaking about the very, very real to me, subjectively real to me, emotional impact that the music of Nirvana has on me. An emotivist approach to ethics argues that moral claims, this is good, this is evil, are really just pointing to the emotional impact that certain behaviors have on us. Right? So, such that even something like murder, when I say murder is wrong, you should not microwave babies. Don't microwave babies. That's not a controversial statement. I don't think anyone in here thinks you should microwave babies. But the emotivist approach to ethics says that.
All right, once again, teachers, if you are interested in if you are interested in helping with the Black History Month celebration committee, meet in Mr. Childers' office, not Jeff Childers, our principal Childers. Meet in his office at 3:15. We're going to have a quick meeting at 3:15 with Ms. Smith and Ms. Wright. Once again,
I didn't tell him no or anything.
Meet in room 350. Meet in Joe Childers' office at 3:15. Thank you, guys.
What was I talking about?
Murder.
Okay, so what the emotivist approach to ethics says is that I can try as hard as I can to justify the claim that microwaving babies is wrong, but I will never find some factual truth there. It ultimately reduces to microwaving babies doesn't slap. That gives a negative emotional impact on me every time I microwave a baby. So I know I should stop. So that's the non-cognitive approach to ethics. Though we're going to focus on the cognitive approaches to ethics today, and really to only one variety of those approaches. We take the cognitive approach to ethics and we divide that into two families also. And we can speak of those families as subjective versus objective, or we can speak of them as relativist versus realist. And we're today going to look at the relativist approach to ethics. There's two varieties of this. Cultural relativism looks at the fact that ethical standards, moral beliefs, differ from time to time and from place to place. Right? So the moral beliefs held in India 500 BC are different from the moral beliefs held in New York City 2026. which are different than the moral beliefs held in Afghanistan 2026. So far, that's just a statement of fact. Different cultures have different moral values. And if I stop there, I'm a relativist, but I'm just a descriptive relativist. And I'm not doing philosophy, I'm just doing anthropology. I'm just saying that people think different stuff. All right, great. But a prescriptive or a normative relativist goes farther and says different cultures, different times, different places have different moral values, and that's the way it should be. Because there are moral truths to get to, but those truths are different from culture to culture, from time to time, from place to place. And our job is to recognize and respect those differences. So within my culture, I can critique somebody's behavior choices if those choices go against the values of my culture. But I would have no right to stand in this 21st century American culture and look over there in the world or over there in the world and say that your values are different than my values, therefore your values are wrong. Tolerance is the ultimate virtue from a cultural relativist perspective. The cultural relativist says that each culture has the responsibility and the right to develop for itself its own ethical standards, its own moral beliefs, and that nobody has any right to call into question or judge the ethical standards or ethical beliefs of another culture. So that's different than emotivism. It's not saying there are no moral facts and there's no moral truth, but it's saying instead of truth, what we want to look at are truths. There's our truth, and there's their truth, and there's y'all's truth. And they don't have to line up, and when they don't line up, that doesn't mean that somebody's wrong. It'd be like if, who's a soccer player? I've got like 90 people, oh, Kevin, you play soccer?
Oh,
Yeah, Kevin, come here. All right, so we have this, if you don't break your leg in the next few years, this may be the first YouTube video I have that anybody actually watches, because Kevin here is on the verge of international professional soccer superstar. And you're dropping out of high school in what, 2 weeks to go play soccer in Brazil?
1 week.
1 week to go play soccer in Brazil. Yeah, Dolly, he's not buying that book. I don't know where you went. So, Kevin, if I run out in the soccer field and I'm like, what are you guys doing? Just pick up the damn ball. And I pick up the ball and I run in for a touchdown. Have I done anything wrong?
Yes.
Yes. So now I haven't violated some rule of the cosmos, right? There's nothing carved into the universe that says you don't pick the ball up with your hand. But because I'm in the game of soccer, well, the game of soccer has the right to play by its own rules. Cultural relativism says that really all good and evil, all moral claims are just like that, right? So in ancient Greece, they play by a certain set of rules, right? If Aristotle asks you to stay after class, some things are going to happen to you that afternoon that we rightly say are morally terrible, but the ancient Greeks, like Aristotle, would say, nah, it'll make a man out of you. Cultural relativism says the rules of the game, the rules of each culture, are developed by the culture, and it's not my place or your place to judge how they do things in another culture. Does that make sense, Kevin?
Yeah.
Thank you, Kevin. Well done. Soccer legend Kevin Aguiar, like and subscribe. What was I saying? Now, there's another variety of relativism, and that's individual relativism. An individual relativist makes the same claims as the cultural relativist. It's just now, instead of we have our truth and y'all have your truth, it's Matthias has his truth and John has his truth and Gayret has his truth and Maddie has his truth. It no longer falls even on a particular culture to determine its moral values, its moral beliefs. It's something that falls to each individual. So it is It is my responsibility and also my right to discern and develop for myself my own sense of identity and my own set of beliefs and my own determination how I'm going to live. If the ultimate virtue is tolerance for a cultural relativist, the same is true for an individual relativist, but then you want to add the virtue of authenticity. And some of the existentialists that we talk about in my ethics class, or in the philosophy class before it, Jean-Paul Sartre, Michel Foucault, authenticity is the major buzzword. The greatest sin for an individual relativist is to not be true to myself, right? To not be who I have decided that I am going to be. This was really impactful. I'm about to do the when I was your age thing. In the 90s, when I was in high school, the worst insults you could give somebody were to call them a poser or a sellout. We would all like carefully tune into MTV and take our orders for how exactly we were going to be unique individuals for the day. But still, being our own unique selves was the most important thing. The individual relativist would say that if I don't approve of the decisions that Dominic makes in his life, well, then I should just not do the things that Dominic does. But I have no right to judge Dominic's behavior choices because Dominic is living out his truth. Right? He's being true to his self, and that has nothing to do with me. It's the mind your own business approach to morality. Now, as I'm sure everyone in this room is faithfully doing, if you're reading our main textbook for the ethics course, Scott Ray's Moral Choices, Christopher is, yes, wonderful. It won't take you long to realize that our author, Scott Ray, does not like relativism. Relativism is the ultimate boogeyman from Scott Ray's perspective. So you will get plenty from Ray about everything Ray finds wrong with relativism. And I don't entirely overlap with Scott Ray's perspective, but you will get enough critique of relativism from a slightly different angle from me throughout the semester. If you're not in my ethics class and you want my critique of relativism, take my ethics class. So to be fair, I wanna give relativism its due. Right? So having outlined what relativism is, I want to know what you think the strengths of relativism might be. The fellow on the screen here is Superhero. He's created by Peter David, the all-time greatest comic book writer, just died about a year ago.
Dasha Marine, report downstairs. Dasha Marine, report to the front office. Dasha Marine, report to the front office. ASAP.
Because it was the 90s and nobody can take anything seriously, because oh well, whatever, never mind was the motto of our generation. This character's superhero name, his real name is Guido, but his character's superhero name is Strong Guy. Strong Guy. So Strong Guy asks, what are the strengths of relativism? I'll tell you what I think some of them are, but I'd like to hear from some of y'all. What do you think the strengths of relativism might be? Christopher.
Perhaps more pursuit of like one's own truth, maybe.
Okay, more pursuit of one's own truth. Sure, being told what to do and being forced to be an automaton and a copycat. Like half you guys won't even wear the dang school uniform because you think it's worth your time to rebel against that. And I kind of get where that's coming from. I would reevaluate whether it's worth the trouble, but I get where that's coming from. And sure. So relativists are very intentional about being authentic, being true to oneself. Other strengths you might see in relativism. Regis.
I don't know if this is.
You don't have to come all the way up, but I need to hear you. So.
I don't know if this is like the same thing you said, but individuality. Like, because I know it's a little bit subjective. Not everyone wants to be different, but it could be like.
Let's find the losers that don't want to be different and force them to be different against their will.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay. Other strengths of this. JT.
It highlights how everybody's background can come into play in certain factors,
Sure.
like religion, race, culture, etc.
Sure. So it recognizes the fact of the diversity of humankind and sort of celebrates that. Any system that doesn't do that doesn't mean it's necessarily wrong, but if I'm pushing against the reality of human diversity, then I've got to account for it. Well, if people they're not supposed to be different, why are they? And now all of a sudden I'm asserting that something's broken with the world. John.
It can allow for like different perspectives on like, different like, problems and
Yeah.
subjects.
Yeah, allow for different perspectives. And now, like this is something that has been fundamental to our society, our civilization, all the way back. How do Socrates and Plato operate? Right? They operate by holding discussions, where with the open and free exchange of ideas among people who do not agree but who respect each other, is the path to truth that the great philosophers who essentially founded our civilization advocated. Right? Plato and Aristotle arguing with each other while remaining close friends, and then that same free exchange of ideas is actually carved into the founding of our republic in our Bill of Rights. That's why we've got freedom of speech and freedom of press. And the reality is, without the free and open exchange of ideas, A, life's incredibly boring. B, we can never learn anything. If I'm only engaged in conversation with people with whom I already expect to agree, I will never be surprised, and I will never learn anything, and then I will never grow. In which case, I might as well just stay home and talk to myself in the mirror, which means this is what I have to see all day. How pleasant would that be an experience? Yeah. So the diversity of perspectives of cultural relativism. Okay, Raph.
I feel like with diversity also comes connection.
Say more about that.
Well, all these people have different ideas, but some of these ideas can then also connect and bring communities together.
Oh, yes. And with that connection comes respect and tolerance. All things being equal, is it better to have tolerance or intolerance? Tolerance. Yes, all things being equal, it's better to have tolerance. Other thoughts on this? I'll show you my list here in just a second, and then we'll wrap up shortly. Other strengths of relativism. Dolly.
I feel like kind of adding on to what both Leo and TJ said, I think
It's pronounced JT.
obviously, yeah. I think relativism kind of goes into what the concept you see in sociology of like cultural relativism, of choosing to see different cultures through their world perspective and not through your own, and being ethnocentric. And I think that kind of helps to stop it from being like the concept of like your culture is different from mine, therefore it is wrong or it's bad, of like taking that moral stance. It can be you have a different culture from me, and you are allowed to have that culture. I'm going to perceive it in your world through and not through my specific lens.
I mean, we learn this when we're just dealing with other people in conversations, and we talk about active listening, and if I'm in a conversation with Matthias says something, I want to try to say back to him what he said, so that make sure he can recognize his ideas in my understanding of his ideas, so that we can adequately communicate. And look, if our engagement with other cultures is one of, let me tell you everything you're wrong about, well, how strong a relationship are we going to build with somebody when that's our approach to that person? I said, okay, well, what if I don't want to build strong relationships with people of other cultures? Well, maybe you had the luxury to feel that way up till about the middle of 1945, when the atomic bomb made its debut, right? So now we live in a divided world that has the kind of weaponry that can wipe out mankind. Whether we like it or not, right? We have to share the earth with people who are different from us, and it would be nice to be able to do that without blowing the damn thing up. And so to be able to engage with others in a way that establishes a baseline of respect is just, not that this is the only reason to choose to do something, but it's just like basic utilitarian, useful common sense. Let's all not blow up each other, right? I always prefer not to be blown up. All right. In the interest of time, let me share some of the strengths that I identify of relativism. All right. So one is it matches the reality of cultural diversity. I think we already hit on that. That if I'm going to be pushing it back against a diversity of ideas, that there should not be different ethical values, then I've got to account for why is it that the world is wrong. Anyway, it recognizes the fact that is does not equal ought. So let me flesh this out just a little bit. So many of our non-relativist ethical systems will make arguments rooted in nature, including the system I use, Aristotle's virtue ethics, right? So I'm not against arguments from nature, but here's what happens when I make an argument from nature. Right? An argument for nature in ethics will say something like, we need to look at what human nature actually is, and then see if my behavior choices align with what a human being is supposed to be. Okay, but it just so happens that nature gives us things like toothaches and nearsightedness, crippling nearsightedness. If I had been born any time before like my great-grandparents' generation, I wouldn't have lived to be 5. I'm totally non-functional. Nature gives us that. It seems, or at least it's a sensibly arguable case, that individual human creativity, human beings saying, no, I'm going to think for myself, I'm going to do my own thing, not only that, but I'm going to stick my hands into the very dirt of the earth and reshape the world in my image, give us root canals and Novocaine and glasses and air conditioning and vaccines. A straightforward argument from nature, again, we'll use arguments from nature in this course, but always have that in the back of their mind that that's something that relativists don't have to deal with. Promotes humility and discourages false certainty. False certainty is the most dangerous thing in the world. Not false beliefs, not people being wrong about stuff, not even really, really bad ideas, but certainty. It is certainty that crashes planes into buildings. It is certainty that drops bombs on villages. And relativists, if I think that every civilization every culture has the right to develop its own values, or every person the right to develop his own values, I'm not very likely to start a war with you if I don't agree with your values. Right? You don't see people marching into battle with banners with a giant question mark on them. We don't know anything. We're open-minded. I'll kill you if you're not open-minded. We don't have that. Relativism enables open communication between cultures. I think we hit on something related to that. And it centers lived experience. So relativists recognize that there is a limit to what any person can understand about the life experience of any other person. And those limits are set by all sorts of different factors. Limits are not zero, right? But there is a limit to what I can understand about what it's like to be a woman, because I'm not one, right? So doesn't mean my understanding can be zero, because all people share a lot in common. But the only way to improve our understanding of each other is to enter into dialogue with each other and hear the stories of each other. because it's not just like these big identifying classes, man, woman, gay, straight, black, white, whatever, but every individual has a unique experience of what it is to be human. You know, to the extent that I'm ignorant of Christopher's experience of being human, well, that's something missing in my understanding of what it is to be human. So later on, we'll talk about, you know, what is the appropriate place for lived experience and ethical questions, and how does it balance against more abstract principles and more universal norms. But lived experience in itself is a good and important factor, and relativism is the approach to ethics that puts that dead center. I want to end with a little illustration here. So, if you know where this is going, please, no spoilers. So this is a protest from, this picture is probably 1969, 1970, 1971. It was a time of, if you know much about U.S. history, it's a time of a lot of social change, a lot of movements to increase the rights of various groups that had previously not had their rights respected. And a lot of that change came about precisely this way, through protest movements. So you've got two causes at once on the side. In the background, I know it's a bad image, but in the background you can see nuclear bombs with the line through it. So they're protesting against nuclear weapons. And then you have here in the foreground, you have the folks marching with the sign that says "Sexual Freedom for All." I think I'm not going to go around the room and take a poll. But I think that statement, sexual freedom for all, is the kind of thing that most students today would say, yes, that I support that. At very least, if by sexual freedom for all, we mean something like people should not be harassed, people should not be imprisoned or persecuted because of their sexuality. So at least that the basic fundamental human rights should not be no one should be deprived of that, because I would prefer not to engage in the kind of activities that they prefer. So am I reading the room of the youth of today correctly, that sexual freedom for all is a cause most people can advocate? These people are members of the North American Man-Boy Love Association. That is a pedophile rights advocacy group. In the late 60s to the 70s and into the early 80s, and now sort of trying to reemerge, there was a movement among some academics to attempt to normalize pedophilia. It was a time of what we call it intellectual experimentation, right? So that so many changes going on in society, so many groups who had been marginalized previously, the society sort of now waking up to the fact that the way we've treated this group and that group and the other group has been wrong. That there was a moment where it seemed like this moment was wrapping up right around the time I was born. So, but there was a moment where it seemed like the normalization of pedophilia was going to be part of the social changes that came in the time when my parents' generation were young adults. Relativism has a lot of strengths. An ethical system that doesn't start wars has a lot going for it. But this is the weakness of relativism. If I'm committed to the idea that each culture or each person has the right to develop for himself or herself their own authentic sense of identity and their own moral values, and nobody has the right to judge the identity and the values of the other person. If I have taken that as my fundamental moral reality, my moral truth, and individuals vary, but let's be honest, as a society, that's pretty much where we are as a society. If that's the case, then the only response I can have to this is, well, I feel like pedophilia doesn't slap. And that's not enough. Right? There are cultures, subcultures, where child abuse is celebrated as an orientation, as an identity. And then there are cultures where gay people are thrown off of buildings. Those cultures are wrong. And if I can't say that, then I have given up the right to a seat at the table in a meaningful conversation about ethics. And I'll be welcome to rejoin the table when the topic turns to what it is I feel like slaps or doesn't slap. All right, so that is our brief introduction to cultural relativism. That's all I need from you for today. The rest of the course. Yes, yes, yes.